The evening it unfolded was unremarkable. Not at first glance. There was not a single thunderstorm, devoid of any dramatic musical crescendo, in the backdrop. No abrupt disputes or the sound of breaking glass, merely the soft drone of the screen flickers in a softly illuminated space, and the hushed burden of a dwelling that had long since drifted into slumber. He stood alongside. I find myself on the couch, his thigh beside me, lightly grazing against mine every so frequently. Initially, I convinced myself it was unintentional, that sort of laid-back closeness that emerges as you've matured at ease with another person's presence. Yet the reality is, I observed. I had been observing for years. The quiet that lingers. Our time together felt natural. It felt known, akin to the pause between breaths, reminiscent of a melody you've listened so often that you ceased truly attentive. My husband had departed for retired early, after taking something for his returning, just as he often did on countless evenings at this moment. His presence within the home had evolved into a more established practice than a connection. My best friend's radiant glow at this moment. Gone are the days of the gangly youth who once left damp towels scattered across my floor after swim days. I had requested to complete the film before venturing out. Certainly I agreed. What reason would I have not to? It seemed innocent until it ceased to be. His hand glided leisurely, with a sense of calm and tranquility. It meandered uncertainly into the void that lay in between us. The tips of his fingers brushed against the beyond my leg. A delicate touch of connection. I stood still, unable to move. My breath hitched, my muscles constricted, yet I remained still. He did not. He couldn't move his hand either. And in some way, that silence conveyed deeper meaning than any words of regret or any justification imaginable. It was not a mere mistake. No longer. A choice was made. My heart rose sharply with a quiet breath. Additionally, all at once, the atmosphere in the room thickened, as if the very air grew dense around us. The screen danced with light before our eyes, casting a soft blue hue upon our features. However, the images held no significance any longer. The story unfolding on the screen faded into the background, an unraveling occurring in the quiet between us. His pinky finger curled delicately and came to rest, pressed firmly against my thigh with purpose. He pivoted his hand, raised toward the sky. I noticed it resting there, receptive, not inquiring but anticipating. My fingers danced restlessly in my lap. I did not. I reached for his hand, yet I remained seated. Neither. The atmosphere was thick with tension. He was engaged. I sensed it within him. Inhale. In a nearly undetectable manner, he inched nearer. "Are you all right?" he murmured. His voice was scarcely more fleeting than a breath. I inclined my head in agreement. That was everything he required. His hands came to rest completely on my calm, consistent, comforting, unhurried, simply asserting a territory it had envisioned for ages yet never traversed. I remained silent. The breath became unsteady. My gaze remained fixed on the flat the television flickered, as if nothing had shifted while all things had. A figure within the screen chuckled, a sound that resonated like it originated from a realm beyond our own. His thumb gently traced the outline of my leg. Feelings abound, cozy and personal. It shattered something within me. My stomach tightened, my thighs pressed closely together. My hands gripped the blanket tightly over my lap, not in defiance, yet with moderation. When here's my hands moved upward, deliberate and measured, I allow my knees to gently part. I'm uncertain about the reason. Perhaps I do. Loneliness often manifests as a deep, persistent sorrow. It remains silent. It murmurs softly. It constructs within the overlooked gaps dialogues and caresses and moments. I hadn't experienced genuine desire in years, negative longed for, yet unseen. My husband had developed remote and preoccupied. I had ceased seeking warmth and tenderness long before he ceased to provide it. And when an occurrence ceases to be presented for a sufficient duration, you begin to think you are unworthy of it no longer. This instant on the couch, an unexpected touch, occurred all that I had concealed. I reminded myself silence would shield me. that nothing recognized could cause me pain. Yet stillness had rendered me unseen, and now a solitary hand resting on my thigh was slowly coming undone years of self-denial. We refrained from kissing. Not at that time. He averted his gaze from me. He merely continued to gaze at the screen as his fingers traced the warmth of my skin, an unforgettable memory that lingered on. I nibbled my lip. Each part of my being turned against me. Each inhalation, each subtle movement of the body yielded to his caress, pleaded for deeper connection. Within, I urged myself to cease this madness, to rise, to express. Yet, I remained. They leaned closer, murmuring once more. "You do not. I have nothing to express. I will cease if you desire." I chose not to respond, and when his fingers glided under the edge of my silence, I remained. For I wished for him to continue. Not this evening, not after all the hollow nights that followed prior to, rather than subsequent to, feigning for an extended period that I required nothing beyond responsibility and habit. He caressed me as if I was someone of significance, as if he possessed spent years longing to be close to me. Perhaps he possessed. The aspect that filled me with the greatest dread there existed, the chance that I had lingered also. As I finally faced him and met his gaze, I remained silent. I pressed my lips against his, lingering, my body quaking with anticipation. Truthful. It was a kiss that originated from a realm beyond mere longing. It emerged from sorrow, from desire, from the unexpected surge of attention following years of lingering in the shadows. It originated from each moment I had gazed into a reflect and lose sight of my true self beyond the titles of spouse, parent, and accountable individual. I didn't get any sleep last night. Evening. Even after he departed, even after I returned to the warmth of the bed next to the man who remained beside the lawn and paper, my husband, I reclined in silence, gazing into the abyss of night, reliving each moment as if it were a scene from a movie wasn't prepared to conclude, because all that had transformed, and there was no turning back. For years, I convinced myself that everything was okay. The comfort of that familiarity was sufficient. That comfort required no fervor. That courtesy might take the place of warmth. We did not engage in battle. We remained silent. We did not contact. There were no fissures, merely a subtle decay, the gentle deterioration of an entity that previously radiated comfort. I utilized to think that safety equated to silence. However, I discovered that silence can possess its own, a certain type of discomfort. That evening on the sofa did not appear unexpectedly. It originated from countless unspoken sentiments conveyed through fleeting looks that once held significance and now hardly acknowledged. I ceased to inquire to have been moved ages ago. He possessed, ceased to provide it well in advance of that. And into that emptiness, another had ventured, strolled without purpose or control, yet with awareness. He possessed has existed for many years. My closest companion's young lad. He spent his childhood moving between the confines of home and the world outside, the sort of comforting presence that never captivated interest, until a moment arrived when he finally did. I do recall the moment he returned from college, more elevated, more expansive, and more serene. He was not a boy anymore. And the manner in which he gazed at for me, it was anything but casual. It was not known, it possessed an understanding. I reminded myself that I found myself lost in a world of imagination. I was casting feelings of isolation onto an individual who merely found myself being kind. That's the way. He inquired about my well-being, or stayed a moment longer, discuss or assist Ed with the fence when my husband was away. It was simply polite behavior. Yet the reality remained concealed, as his hand lightly grazed mine, unwavering and intentional. As he observed, not as a boy gazing at an elder, but as a man gazes upon someone he desires to understand. For the very first time and for years, someone perceived me beyond the role of a mother, not in the role of a wife, but in the essence of a woman, as an individual who continued to harbor longing despite the circumstances she had, not laid a finger on it in quite some time, moment. That marked the onset of the unraveling, and the couch was precisely where the thread ultimately snapped. The days, the one that came after, progressed at a languid pace. as if the atmosphere had grown dense around me. Each movement seemed burdened, each look tinged with an unexpressed sentiment. He did not arrive the following day, and a part of me was free from worry. Another section lingered, observing the clock ticked softly, and I strained to hear any footsteps or the sound of a knock or the creak of a door. However, there was only silence, the sort that packed a home with inquiries. I steered clear of the sofa. I discovered additional locations to fold. Doing laundry, sipping coffee, and sitting back act as if everything remained the same. Yet it had shifted. All things had transpired. My spouse did not attention. He simply didn't. He inquired about dinner, the weather, and the utility statement. He showed no interest in my well-being. The next time I encountered him, the boy who he had outgrown his childhood, the hour had grown late. "Good afternoon," he swung by with some groceries, an action he had repeated countless times in the past. He mentioned that his mother had some additional items and considered, "We could certainly benefit from that." It was a deception, yet a well done. I welcomed him inside. He placed the bags resting on the counter. I leaned against the sink, arms folded. Neither of us referred to that evening, yet it lingered. Amidst our connection, he extended his hand toward a dish towel that had tumbled to the ground and swept my hand during the journey. That solitary the accidental brush ignited a flurry of sensations within me. For limb. He gazed at me, then truly observed. And my breath was caught. For a brief moment, we remained in a stillness that shouted, Are you all right?" He inquired once more, the same phrases from the sofa, now laden with weight. I inclined my head in agreement. It was not a fact, yet it was the sole response I can provide. He advanced, returning with consideration and mindfulness. I despised the way I cherished that immensely. As the evening unfolded, once the house was quiet and everyone had settled into their dreams, I remained standing, isolated in the kitchen. The surface beneath was chilly. The sole illumination emerged from the refrigerator, while I gazed at a carton I found myself with juice I had no desire for. From behind, I caught the sound, the softest whisper of bare feet on tile. I did not turn. I was certain it was him. They halted in my wake. Not near enough to sense the connection. The atmosphere transformed. The stillness enveloped us like a veil. I shut the refrigerator door gradually, remaining unmoved. My contemplation. In the glass, a faint, ethereal presence lingered. He couldn't shake it from his mind, he remarked. His voice carried a deep, gritty quality. Neither was able to. At last I turned. We faced each other, faces inches apart, each pretending to exude more courage than we experienced. He lifted a hand, hesitated, then swept a lock of strands from my cheek. It was merely a trivial matter. It was everything. "We ought not to," I murmured. "I understand," yet we remained in place. The initial kiss possessed quaking and yearning. The second had a hushed quality, resonating with profound depth and a hint of understanding. We were fully aware of our actions at this moment. We were aware that we would continue on our path. The remainder of the house lay in slumber while we remained in that kitchen, enveloped in something delicate and off-limits. As his lips met mine once more, I did not hold back. When my hands found their way to my waist as I leaned in closer. As we finally drew away from each other, gasping and unsteady, I was aware of this. It was not an error. I might overlook it because it felt entirely right. The subsequent days unfolded in a haze of an everyday pattern, infused with unease. The realm I inhabit remained intact, just continued onward, as though nothing had transpired, and yet all within me felt askew. Every the smile I offered at the dinner table, each casual conversations in the corridor, every cup of coffee the cup glided over the counter, it all held the significance of that kiss. I commenced to dread the sight of my own reflection. Not due to this of remorse, yet I could perceive the transformation, a certain radiance, a spark of desire, of consciousness. It was not merely the recollection of his lips, or the manner in which his hands snugly embraced my waist. The sensation was palpable that someone had noticed my presence, reached out to me, wished for me not as an obligation, not from practice, yet by preference. We never engaged in conversation, concerning it, not through language. The dialogues dragged on with excruciating monotony. Yet there was a subtle tension in all things. As he handed me the salt, as he swung the door open, he extended his hand stay for just a moment more. When our gazes entwined for a moment that stretched, I found myself balancing precariously, teetering on the edge, already inclining towards the autumn. Single. In the evening, my husband declared that he would be absent for a conference, just like that. I nodded, feigning indifference, yet my heart pounded in my chest. Under the cloak of night, I found myself sitting solitary on the porch. The wine glass in my hand quivered ever so slightly. The cicada's song echoed softly in the distance, as the sun descending gently towards the horizon. Then the door creaked, open, groaned. I failed to raise my gaze. I was aware that it was him. His footsteps had become a comforting echo in the silence, less noisy than my husband's, more uncertain. He settled next to me. Not overly nearby, yet not distant. Merely within reach. The atmosphere hummed with an electric energy between us. "You appear weary," he remarked. "I exist." Have you been? Have you been getting a lot of sleep recently?" "Not really." "Me neither." We didn't look at each other. We didn't need to. Everything between us was loud, even in silence. I sipped my wine slowly. "Is this what you want?" I asked finally. There was a pause. "I don't know what I want. I just know I want to be where you are." I closed my eyes. It was the wrong answer, but it was honest. That night, we didn't plan anything. He didn't creep into my room. We didn't touch, but we lingered together longer than we should have. We watched a movie we didn't care about on opposite sides of the couch. We didn't touch, but our legs nearly did, and I felt his presence as if it were woven into my breath. When he stood to leave, he paused by the door. "I'm trying to do the right thing." "So am I." "Is this the right thing?" I looked at him. "Really?" "Looked." "No." "Then why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense?" I didn't answer. I couldn't because I felt it too. The night he returned again, the house felt even quieter than usual. The kind of quiet that sinks into your skin and weighs down your bones. I had just finished washing the last dish, my hands still damp, my heart already racing. And I didn't know war, or rather, I did but didn't want to admit it. I heard the door close softly, and a moment later, footsteps crossed the hardwood floor. He stood in the kitchen doorway, eyes meeting mine. We didn't smile, we didn't speak. He walked in, took the towel from my hands, and dried them slowly and methodically. Then he held my hand longer than he needed to. There was no movie playing this time, no couch to pretend on. The pretense was gone. He led me by the wrist, gently toward the guest bedroom, the one he stayed in when he visited, the one I hadn't dared enter since that night. The doorknob turned like a confession,